all these concepts and the way around according to God's plan for Israel ultimately. Amen. So like I said, these are very, very deep subject matters that we'll be covering. Again, Apostle Paul deals with the problem associated with the condition of Israel. What does it mean that Israel has missed its Messiah? It's a big question. Amen? Think about it. Israel is a nation that God created, elected, called, and appointed to be his chosen people. How come that today they have missed the same God and they have missed his Messiah? What does this say about God? What does it say about Israel? And again, what does it say about our present position in God? Let me explain what these three questions I've put here mean. Israel are not a people that sought after God. Israel are a nation that God sought after, appointed, and elected to be special people. Israel have missed their way to God. Israel have missed their way to God, and the question that should come to the mind of every believer is, if this is God's nation that he appointed, selected, elected, set aside, and they have missed him and they are not finding him, we who are now in quote and unquote Israel's position spiritually or currently, we can also miss our way. Are you following? Are you following? Can I repeat it? Israel, God set them up as a nation and appointed them to be his special people. Gave them everything so that they could relate to him. Now, these people now are missing God because they have rejected God's means to know him. Are you following? In spite of God's sovereign election and in spite of everything God has done for them and through them. Now, the question that should come to any Christian's mind is, if Israel, and Paul actually discusses that later in the chapter, we're going to come to it. If Israel, who are the appointed people of God, have missed the way and are now sort quote unquote rejected, if we, who are also now in relationship with God, miss the way, we could also be rejected. Are you following? Paul actually mentions that specifically. And that should be at the back of every Christian's mind. In our case, we sought after God. In Israel's case, they didn't even seek after God. God pulled them in sovereignly by his will. Are you following? So these are the valid questions that everybody should ask. And I'm going on with some more questions. The question goes something like this. How can I be secure in God's love and salvation to me when it